With CM Punk undergoing surgery and more, this is Wrestling Hub. My name is John, and you're watching the Wrestling Report for September 11th. Before we get into the rest of the video, make sure you subscribe to Wrestling Hub and turn on all notifications to stay up to date with everything in the world of pro wrestling. Also, don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Wrestling Hub Official and follow us on Twitter at Wrestling_Hub. During an interview with NBC Sports, Mr. Kennedy recalled the scrapped plans for him to win the world title from The Undertaker in 2007. I can't change things that happened in the past. It was kind of crazy. They had already told me 2 or 3 days earlier that I was going to be winning the title from The Undertaker. Taker was hurt too. He needed F bicep surgery. So they said, we need this title off Taker. What we're going to do is we're going to have him in this cage match. He's going to barely sneak out alive, and then somebody else is going to come out and beat him up some more, and then you're going to come out and cash in your Money in the Bank briefcase, and you're going to be the new champion. Talking to Wrestling Inc., former ROH champion PCO talked about the talks he had with ROH and AEW years ago before ultimately deciding to sign with ROH at the time. When AEW started, I was so confused. I was talking to Marty Scurll on one side, which was Ring of Honor, and I was talking with Cody Rhodes and the Bucks on the other side. I went with kind of security, so to speak. I didn't know Tony Khan. I didn't know how much time he would be willing to invest. They didn't have a TV deal back then. They had a few pay-per-views lined up. I had to make the best decision for myself. I thought that was going with Ring of Honor because Sinclair was behind it. Talking about the growth AEW has seen since its inception, Chris Jericho talked about pains in the business with Inside the Ropes. We've been doing this for 3 years now and continuing to grow, and this is a big-time corporate business. We are run and paid for by a giant television corporation, so there's always going to be growing pains when you start a company. I think we've done 9 things right and maybe 1 thing wrong or 2 things wrong. So we learn from that and we continue to build our brand and continue to improve. When it comes to plans for the undisputed Universal Champion Roman Reigns, it seems he will be a multi-year champion, as Meltzer noted on Wrestling Observer Radio. Their long-term story may have made it impossible for Drew McIntyre to win at Clash at the Castle. I mean, for the night, he should have won, but they're telling long-term stories. They want Roman Reigns to be a multi-year champion. If that's their goal, then they didn't want to screw up their goal. They certainly could have done it, but that's their mentality. During his Strictly Business podcast, Eric Bischoff spoke about MJF's promo exchange with Jon Moxley from Dynamite, where he called out MJF for continuing to mention WWE on AEW programming. I question bringing up the WWE. I'd rather be somewhere else. I get it, and he delivered it in an amazingly talented way. I just don't know if that segment was the right segment to do that in. Perhaps MJF was really, in his own way, personifying the CM Punk situation, making it his own so that Moxley could dismiss it the way he did and turn him into a heel. I did love that dynamic. I just wish they could have done it without the WWE references. Talking about the brawl that took place between the Elite and CM Punk backstage after AEW All Out, Booker T spoke to Wrestling Inc. about what could have prevented this. That could have been it. But one thing about the business, I was talking about my show Hall of Fame, and it's something that we've always had the respect to do, is the guy that was working the main event. We would always go to that guy and we would say, hey man, really appreciate you for the house, bro. Thanks for the house, man. We would always do that out of respect. But the guy at the top, he never came to us and said, hey guys, you can thank me for the house. And I think that's something that the business has gotten away from. I've heard certain guys like CM Punk talk about Wrestlers Court and how it was crap, how it was bull, but those are the ways we used to make sure our locker room stayed a certain way with certain guys. We policed that locker room and we did it a certain way, and I think at the end of the day, some guys did like Wrestlers Court, but for me, I was all in because it was something that we did to make sure that guys came into that locker room, they knew the protocol. Booker T would then address the need for a locker room leader like The Undertaker in AEW. CM Punk didn't seem to want to play ball with whoever that Undertaker character was going to be in this room. He seems to be wanting to be that character in the locker room. At least that's how I discern this. There again, I think that's where a lot of the problems going to come in, and where these guys don't go by the traditional code of the way the business was run for so many years, and I think it was run very, very well, especially the locker room from an attention perspective. But I don't think Kenny Omega, the Young Bucks, those guys, they're not off into the wrestler's court, and then to put CM Punk on trial, that's like putting Donald Trump on trial. We're going to have a lot of roadblocks in the way, and Punk, there again, is one of those guys who doesn't believe in wrestler's court as well, so I don't see something like that working. But if they did have a system like that and were able to police themselves and talk amongst themselves and put each other on trial, I think it would be a much, much better place. Speaking on the H2 radio, Sasha Banks, who has still not returned to WWE following her walkout with Naomi over the summer, talked about wanting to own the character she portrays. You always want to create characters to portray and live by. You're a character right now. I'm sure once you get off your headsets, you're someone completely different. We're always portraying different characters in every different moment of our time. For me, it's really just owning my own intellectual property and owning the character behind the character and really defining who is the character that is playing the character. It's really just finding yourself. When it comes to even wrestling, that's a character that I come up with and I portray myself, and you have your writers coming in and giving a little more details of what they see for it. It's really, when it comes to characters in your life, it's what you see for that character, because only you know how you're going to play it, and only you know how to see the vision of that character. With it rumored that the Young Bucks previously sent feelers to WWE prior to their AEW contracts being picked up, Dave Meltzer on Wrestling Observer Radio shot down this notion, saying, "I never said that to anyone. They're under contract till the end of 2023. After that point, everyone should send out feelers at the end of their deal and see what the offers are. We're a long ways away from that now." In the Wrestling Observer Daily, Dave Meltzer gave an update on CM Punk as he said CM Punk underwent surgery earlier this week for the torn left triceps he suffered when doing the tope early in the Jon Moxley match. That is usually about an 8-month recovery period. His doctor recommended surgery right away to prevent any muscle atrophy. During the post-all-out media scrum, CM Punk was eating muffins from Mindy's Bakery while he was calling out Colt Cabana and the EVPs, as it seems many fans have recently left great reviews for the business as they read, "I share a joint bank account with my mother, and we spend a majority of our earnings here on muffins and pastries. Gets us through the headache of working with children every day." Hey, if a grumpy, brittle, and narcissistic old man who physically assaulted his higher-ups based off rumors he made up in his own head is able to actually like something other than himself, then it must be really good. Give this place a try. Would punch a guy for one of their muffins. Great for my old, unathletic body. As he is now dating former WWE star Tenille Dashwood, Madcap Moss spoke on Busted Open Radio about his girlfriend returning to the company. "I may be accused of being a bit biased as we are dating, but I would love to see Tenille Dashwood back in WWE. Emma, formerly known as Emma, and I would love to see. I think she's got a lot to offer, and I think she was one of the originals that helped put the women's division on the map. I think she's great in the ring too, and I would love to see her come back." With it rumored that R-Truth and John Cena had a falling out after an incident at an airport in the early 2000s, R-Truth recalled his initial conversation with Cena when he came back to WWE in 2008 on Nothing Beats Experience. "When I signed back to the company, Cena was the big dog and everybody was waiting for us to meet face to face. Everybody was waiting, knew I signed back. The boys are so crazy, man. Umaga, rest in peace, Umaga, man. He got me to come back, and even he was in the locker room. When I got to the locker room, all of the boys were sitting down just watching. Cena was in the bathroom, so when I came in, I didn't notice. They're all sitting there waiting. When he comes in, he looked. He said, 'We're not gonna have any problems, are we?' I said, 'Man, hell no. I'm on your ship.'" With him previously making his return to WWE on Raw, Johnny Gargano mentioned on After the Bell how he wanted his comeback to be a surprise. So it happened very fast, the whole thing. It's very fun to be able to literally keep a secret in a time period where that doesn't happen. Everything leaks nowadays. Everything in wrestling leaks. I remember when I was younger, I loved things during the Attitude Era, where you'd be watching Nitro, you're watching Raw, and someone just showed up and you're like, what the hell is going on? Can't believe they're here. The dirt sheets and things like that were around, but it also wasn't as prevalent as it is today with the internet and whatnot. That was the most important thing to me for the secret, for this return, was to make it a complete surprise. Obviously, I could have come back 2 weeks prior in Cleveland, but everyone believed that. Everyone thought that was going to happen. That's probably why it didn't happen. It would have been great. I'd love to come back to my hometown. I still haven't wrestled in that arena, which is mind-blowing to me, outside of when I was Cedric Von Hausen, but that's a different character. It's a different universe. It was really important to me just to keep this whole thing under wraps as much as possible. When asked about her thoughts on Brock Lesnar, former UFC champion and WWE star Ronda Rousey revealed on her Twitch, I think he's fantastic. I think he's awesome. We kind of didn't cross paths in MMA. He was kind of before my time a little bit, but since coming to WWE, he's been the absolute coolest. He's super smart. I never would have guessed. In MMA, I always just kind of assume, fighters are all of a certain, they're not the scholarly types, most of them. And this was your Pro Wrestling News Update. I hope you're all having a great day. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you later.